Okay. Welcome back to Andy's Library. We've got Caitlin. I am on location in the tropics of Virginia.
Oh my gosh.
And I've got my copy, made the trip.
Safe and sound.
Do you have any more tabs?
I did put a few more tabs in. Sometimes I put a tab in just because it's a quote that I like.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I tabbed where I guess Poirot is like basically having a fever dream or something, like he's laying in bed thinking of all the clues, and so it kind of like lists out all the clues that he's piecing together. So I tabbed that because I felt like that was important.
Okay.
Should I go over that?
I think his fever dream is also where I got my theory from.
You have a theory?
I have a theory.
Okay, I'm excited to hear it because I'm going insane. I'm really at a loss. So I'm excited to hear your theory.
Oh, I don't think it ties everything together. So this is more like that desperation guess when you're playing Clue, where it's just like, you know what, I'm just taking a shot at it. I think that's kind of more where my thought process is.
Okay.
Okay. So do you want to go over the fever dream and then I'll give my theory?
So he's like, Mr. Entwistle, the smell of paint, Timothy's house and something that must be in it or might be in it, the wax flowers, Helen, broken glass.
Yeah. Okay, so now when you just said that, I'm thinking maybe my theory doesn't tie everything together, but it is definitely from the fever dream.
Okay.
So the whole thing with the paint and smelling paint and everybody's like they were talking about when Susan came to visit the cottage, how she smelled paint. And they made a big deal, like it just seems as if they kind of recycle this theme a lot of how Cora was shrewd. Like she every now and then would be like pretty shrewd and understand things. And then they also made fun of how she always bought pictures and then they were never worth anything. So here's my crazy theory. Miss Gilchrist impersonated Cora, stirred things up at the funeral. Cora dies. Cora left. Cora gets murdered. Cora leaves all of her pictures to Miss Gilchrist. And there really isn't anything else of worth that she has. So there's no motive for anybody to kill Cora unless they, about the murder of Richard. I think she wants the pictures, and I think there are some pictures that are valuable, and she's going to use that to restart her tea. And I think she painted over the valuable paintings.
Would that ruin them then?
Like I said, I might not have all of the ends tied together.
So let me try to follow.
Yeah, maybe this doesn't make sense.
Miss Gilchrist impersonated Cora, so is Miss Gilchrist at the funeral?
Yes.
And like the same Miss Gilchrist that we know now?
Yes.
And they just, because she has one of those faces, they just haven't realized they're talking to that same person who was pretending to be Cora.
Yes.
Okay.
Because why else would Helen get murdered? Like, why else? Like, who would come up behind Helen and try and kill her? When she's saying to Poirot, like, I feel like, because you kind of know that Helen's on the phone with Mr. Entwistle to say, I figured it out. Cora wasn't Cora. Who else would kill her? Nobody else could have played the part of Cora that was there. It has to be Miss Gilchrist.
So what do you think Helen saw in the mirror that made her have this revelation?
The fact that when Miss Gilchrist was learning how to impersonate Cora, she was mirroring her.
I was thinking that too because, like, you're tilting your head because they always talk about how Cora had this way of tilting her head to the side when she would make one of those crazy statements. And so I was thinking too, like maybe she always tilted her head to the right. And so when you're looking at her,
Yep.
tilting her head to the right, then when you impersonate her, you
Yeah.
mistakenly put your head to the left because it's the mirror image.
Yep. That's what I think. So that's why I'm
Mhm.
thinking like she figured it out. She figured out the Cora was being impersonated because of it being the mirror image. So that's like came to her. So when she called Mr. Entwistle to be like, I figured out what's wrong. So the people were thinking that she got attacked by someone that was in the house. Well, the only person in the house that could have impersonated Cora at the funeral is Miss Gilchrist because everybody else was at the funeral as themselves.
Yeah.
So then I had to think through like, okay, well, if it was Miss Gilchrist, why would she stir the pot? Which she did, because she even says like what had to be done. It had to be said. I'm almost thinking like, why would she say that and stir the pot other than to have someone, well, I don't know. It actually, now that I'm saying that, it is a little far fetched. But I do feel like there's something in that Miss Gilchrist is either getting back at Cora for something, or Miss Gilchrist is getting back at the family for something.
Like she wanted somebody to kill Cora,
Yeah.
which is
Or
why
she
she made
killed
the
Cora.
statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my thinking. And then she did poison herself. And that's kind of my thinking.
So I have like a few outstanding questions, probably more than a few, but the ones that are coming to mind. So there's something going on with the whole nun thing, because I think
Yeah.
we have three instances where a nun comes to the door asking for donations. The first time was, I think either the day before or the day of Richard's death. Um, the second time
Okay.
is the day of the inquest for Cora's murder. Somebody
Yep, I
comes to the
remember
door
that.
that and Gilchrist answers.
Yep.
And then the third time is at Timothy's house when Mrs. Gilchrist answers the door
Yeah.
there as well. And so the only thing I was thinking with that, and she said that she thinks like this person had like a mustache and
Yeah.
that it was just one nun, which apparently normally it's two nuns that go door to door. So I was thinking, okay, seems like it's possible there's somebody pretending to be a nun, possibly a man, who's somehow using it as an opportunity to access the house and maybe poison Richard, drop that cake off at Cora's or to Miss Gilchrist, and maybe also drop something off at Timothy's house, like poison medication or something like that, because Poirot asked Mr. Entwistle to retrieve something from Timothy's house that he thinks might be there. And I'm wondering if he thinks the nun or whoever was pretending to be the nun dropped something off that he's looking for.
Okay. So the nun, so the question is who's playing the part of the nun? So maybe George, Gregory, or Michael.
Yeah, because of the fact that she said about the mustache. So that kind of threw me off because I've been so suspicious of Miss Gilchrist, but I wonder if somehow she's working with somebody. Like it's not just her. Maybe somebody else is in on this, one of the men.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
I noticed because I was like really going back and rereading a lot of things that often Gregory is all he's described as having a very nondescript face.
Yeah.
Like I wrote down the pages, page 59, page 9, page 189. They describe him with that same word that he looks nondescript. So
Yeah.
it's possible for sure that he could dress up as a nun and people wouldn't like realize that it was him when they're looking at that face.
Right.
And he also speaks in this I think it's like a shrill voice at some point when he's like getting upset. So I'm
Yeah.
also like thinking, oh, like he could imitate like a female voice.
Well, and he
But
says he was, and the trap that Hercule Poirot was setting was when he says something along the lines of, find out what Gregory was being treated for at the mental hospital.
yeah, because he
Remember
wasn't
when Poirot said
actually,
that to Mr. Entwistle, and then it's like, never mind, that was just a
yeah,
trap.
like he wanted
So
somebody to be listening in on the line.
yeah, so it could be Gregory working with Miss Gilchrist.
Which I could kind of see because he's come into the picture more recently with this
Mm-hmm.
family. Susan
Yep,
just married him and
yep, and
has
it's
a
six
very
months
seedy
ago.
past.
She, yep, and she married him 6 months ago, which is when Mortimer died, and that
Oh,
is when uh, Richard started making his visits, because they said at one point 6 months ago when they got married, they just got married in like a magistrate's office, because Susan makes the comment, well, how did Cora even know when we got married 6 months ago? We just got married at the magistrate's office.
yeah.
So the timing, you're right. The timing is really suspicious. Wow. But Cora and Miss Gilchrist have been together 3.5 years. I went
According
back and,
to Miss Gilchrist.
yes, according to Miss Gilchrist. And now we're not sure about
Honestly, do we even know that Miss Gilchrist ever lived with her at all and didn't just know her somehow, impersonate her, and then go to her house and kill her, and then take up residence in the house as if she's been living there as her companion?
Yeah.
That,
And
like,
Richard told Cora he was setting a trap.
yeah.
Richard told
Or,
Cora he was setting a
well,
trap.
I don't know that Richard told Cora he was setting a trap. That came from Lanscombe saying that after he got back from making all his visits to Timothy and Cora, that he would like kind of mutter to himself. And one of the things he muttered to himself was that like he had to set this trap. Like he doesn't like to have to do it, but
Right. This is what's wrong with shooting on location. Can you hear somebody's car alarm going off?
a little bit. It's not too
We need
distracting though.
we need to invest in a studio.
You know what? That's the next step.
It is.
If we solve this
Yeah.
correctly, I think that's our reward.
Yeah, we're gonna get ourselves a studio. All right, so I'm still going with Miss Gilchrist as the Cora impersonator.
I like
Gregory
that.
is the nun. Gregory might be Miss Gilchrist's son, and Miss Gilchrist might be the maid that was dismissed for being pregnant.
I look back, her name was Molly. And I'm also wondering if Gregory, well, he might be a bit young, actually. I was wondering if he could be like the baby daddy or something.
Yeah,
But I
Gregory's
think
probably the baby.
oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So Gregory's the baby. Miss Gilchrist is his mom, and they're getting revenge on Cora.
Cora
And
and
yeah,
like the
and the
whole family really for,
yeah,
I guess, letting them go or letting her go when she got pregnant.
yeah, yeah,
I also really wonder who the father is because there have been times where I think that it could have been Timothy who was the father, and that's why it was like such a big hush up, and that
yeah.
uh, I don't know.
Or even Leo, because they just keep saying about how Helen was so devoted to Leo, and she's so above reproach, but then we never really, and we still don't know who Mortimer's mom is. Maybe that wasn't the big element we thought it was. I don't know. But the fact that like 6 months ago is when Susan and Gregory get married It's when Richard starts making his rounds. It's when Mortimer was killed. Like, we're not 100% sure. Mortimer might have been murdered.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I wonder if there's more to that.
Yeah.
Like, if they've just been picking off this family.
Yeah.
And maybe Richard was suspicious of it and thought he might be next. And so part of the trap he set was to try to like figure
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So like I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the best theory that I think putting all this together just now with you is the most I've felt on the right track, I guess.
I know.
It still
I like
seems
the
like,
nun thing.
yeah.
I really like the fact that the nun is when we're noticing like the poisoning and the wedding cake and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do feel like, yeah, I do like that idea.
I do still have a question about the malachite table with the wax flowers
Yeah.
because I noticed some other things. Okay, so Cora, or whoever was pretending to be Cora, was sitting by them before the funeral. Then I was reading, at one point, Rosamond was looking at
Yeah.
them. Then
Yeah.
Helen is looking at them, and that's when she's thinking something was off. And then later on, Helen breaks them. And that's when, like, Poirot in his fever dream is saying, like, shattered glass, like, as if that has
Yeah.
something maybe to do with it. And now Susan and Rosamond are, like, fighting over who gets this malachite table. And,
Yeah.
like, they seem so intent and obsessed with it. Even
And
Gregory, too, he's like, Susan is getting that. Like, he got
yes.
really serious. And it said, like, the whole, like, the vibe of the room changed when he said that.
Yeah.
So I
And
just
then also like they can't find the wax flowers and they're making a big deal about not being able to find the wax
yeah,
flowers.
like they really want to see them.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, was there something that they saw?
Yeah.
And I can't fit it in.
I can't either. And I've reread so much of this too.
I feel like I reread basically the whole thing, like just skimmed over everything.
I do too. This one might get us. I'm sticking with
I,
Miss Gilchrist is Cora. Gregory's the murderer. And the motive is revenge on Cora and the family.
I agree with that.
All right. And we stopped reading what we still, so next we have to read chapters 22,
Oh
23, and
yeah,
24.
we should mention that because in our last video we said we would be reading up to chapter 24, but when we got to chapter 22, I started reading. I was like, I feel like a revelation is about to come and we need to stop.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's
Yeah.
where we're at.
All right. So are we locking in our final decision, our final guess?
Yes, Miss Gilchrist impersonated Cora. Gregory
Yep.
is her son.
Yep.
She's Molly, and he's pretending to be the nun, murdering different members of the family as revenge.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So we'll see next week.
Okay.
And feel free to put your guesses or blow up our theories in the comments.
Yeah.
And for next time, read chapters 22, 23, and 24, and we'll reconvene.
And 25.
Oh, and 25, right. And we will reconvene.
All right. Bye.